When Hye Kyo sat down to talk about her upcoming drama with Gong Yoo, no one expected the conversation to become one of the most quietly discussed moments of the week. There were no shocking headlines, no viral clips meant to provoke reaction, just her voice, her expression, and her words. And yet, fans walked away from the interview feeling like they had just heard something deeply personal, even though nothing personal was directly said. She spoke calmly, thoughtfully, as she always does. The interviewer asked about her character, a woman shaped by experience, by time, by emotional endurance. Hye Kyo explained that this role wasn't about dramatic transformation, but about understanding stillness, self-respect, and choosing peace. She described the character as someone who has learned to love herself quietly, without proving anything to anyone. That's when fans started leaning in. Because the way she spoke didn't feel rehearsed. It felt lived in. She paused often, choosing her words carefully. Not because she was unsure, but because she seemed intentional. When she spoke about self-love, she didn't frame it as confidence or independence in the dramatic sense. She framed it as comfort, safety, emotional balance. The kind of self-love that comes after growth, not before it. And viewers noticed something else, her tone. There was a softness to it that hadn't been there in earlier interviews. Not sadness. Not nostalgia. But a kind of calm that suggests someone who knows exactly where they are emotionally. Someone who isn't searching anymore. When asked how she personally connects to the character, she smiled, not brightly, not performatively, but gently. And she said something that immediately began circulating among fans. I think loving yourself means being honest with what brings you peace, and protecting that. Protecting peace. It was a simple sentence, but its timing made it resonate far beyond the interview room. Because this conversation came after weeks of subtle moments fans had been quietly tracking. Moments that didn't scream for attention, but somehow found it anyway. Small details, ordinary gestures, things that only stand out when you start seeing a pattern. So when Hye Kyo spoke about emotional boundaries and choosing what feels safe, people didn't hear it in isolation. They heard it layered on top of everything else. She went on to explain that her character doesn't chase love, but recognizes it when it aligns with her life. That she believes relationships, whether romantic or personal, should feel supportive, not consuming. And again, fans noticed how natural the words sounded as they left her mouth. Not like lines from a script. Like reflections. The interviewer gently shifted the conversation toward working with Gong Yoo, and Hye Kyo spoke warmly about professionalism, mutual respect, and comfort on set. She praised the environment, the calm energy, and how important it is to feel understood while working long hours. And once again, that word surfaced, comfort. Fans replayed the clip, not because of what she said about Gong Yoo, but because of how often she emphasized emotional ease. The importance of being around people who don't drain you. The value of quiet understanding. This wasn't a dramatic interview. It was intimate in its restraint. And the internet picked up on that immediately. Comments began to appear under clips of the interview. She sounds grounded. This feels like a different phase for her. She's speaking from experience. This interview hits different after everything this week. Because context changes meaning. And context is something this audience has been living in lately. Hye Kyo didn't reference rumors. She didn't acknowledge speculation. She didn't hint at anything explicitly. But she didn't have to. Because sometimes what's unsaid carries more weight than what's spoken aloud. The camera lingered on her expressions. Her eyes softened when she talked about emotional honesty. She nodded slowly when discussing maturity. She smiled when mentioning growth, not the forced smile of promotion, but the kind that comes naturally when someone feels aligned with their current path. And fans felt it. One viewer wrote, "She sounds like someone who's protecting something important." Another said, this feels like a response without being a response. And perhaps the most telling comment read, "She's not acting here." The interview ended quietly. No dramatic closing line. Just gratitude, reflection, and composure. But once it ended, the conversation around it only grew louder. Because this wasn't just an actress talking about a role. It felt like a woman explaining her emotional philosophy. And when placed alongside recent moments fans have been discussing, the quiet appearances, the personal details, the careful pacing, this interview felt like the emotional center of the series. Not confirmation. Not denial. Just clarity. And clarity, when it arrives quietly, often says more than noise ever could. What made this interview linger wasn't what trended, it was what stayed. Fans didn't clip dramatic sound bites. They didn't isolate bold statements. Instead, they replayed pauses. Facial expressions. The spaces between her words. And that's where meaning seemed to live. A few hours after the interview aired, fan accounts began pairing clips from this conversation with older interviews from years ago. The contrast was striking. In the past, Hye Kyo spoke about love with curiosity, sometimes with uncertainty, sometimes with hope. Now, she spoke about it with steadiness. There was no longing in her voice. No searching. Just understanding. That evolution didn't go unnoticed. One fan wrote, "She sounds like someone who knows what she wants, and what she won't compromise anymore." Another added, "This feels like peace after chaos." And suddenly, this interview became less about promotion and more about timing. Because this wasn't happening in a vacuum. It came after a week where fans had been quietly connecting dots, noticing proximity, symbolism, and personal details that felt deliberate, but never loud. And now, here was Hye Kyo, speaking openly about emotional alignment, safety, and choosing peace. Not addressing anything directly. Yet somehow addressing everything. She talked about how her character doesn't need validation from others. How self-love means trusting your own rhythm. How real connection doesn't rush, it arrives when both people are ready. And fans couldn't help but feel like these weren't just acting notes. They were principles. Someone pointed out how relaxed her posture was throughout the interview. Another noticed that she rarely shifted in her seat, a small body language detail that often suggests comfort and confidence. She wasn't guarded. She wasn't defensive. She was present. That presence made viewers feel like they were watching someone who wasn't hiding, but also wasn't revealing more than necessary. Which, in itself, felt intentional. And that's why this interview fits so seamlessly into the series you've been building. And that's where the story should have stopped. Has never been about big gestures, a pair of dramatic moments, and enough symbolism to fuel 1,000 theories. About subtle alignment. The real twist happening later that evening, in the background, when a small ripple inside the fashion world turned into a tidal wave across fandom spaces. This interview became the emotional punctuation hours mark. After Hye Kyo's photo not an exclamation, a stylist, a period, someone known for working with multiple top-tier Korean actors, and the audience responded on Levan's discontinued pair collections. Viewers didn't demand answers. It wasn't a big like. They didn't flood comments with speculation that was trending. Instead, they was buried in a mid-sized fashion forum. This feels healthy. But fans called it mature. And this what feels like even someone protecting her peace was the fact that the stylist had recently worked with Lee Minute-ho on a magazine shoot. That reaction was telling. Just one like. What's powerful about this moment is that it allows space. But in a world where celebrities communicate quietly, everything counts. Space for privacy. Because if the stylist knew something, for humanity, then maybe the speculation wasn't speculation to say anymore. Anything explicitly, maybe because her demeanor weren't imagining the connection. Her calm suggested maybe they were just early to something that was her unfolding naturally, boundaries, slowly, quietly. Her tone suggested intention. The next morning, and when fans the internet was a mess of theories, they've been observing lately stood out. It creates a narrative someone that feels grounded, side by side, not photos. Sensational. The unique shade of Maison Levan's story about arc stone brown leather, It's a story about emotional timing,
Lee-Minute Ho carried
about how
Tokyo
people
fan
speak
event
differently
earlier this
when
year.
they've reached a certain place
The
in
texture
life.
matched.
About how
The stitching
self-love isn't
matched.
loud, it's protective.
Even the small embossing,
about
blurred
how
in
peace
photos,
doesn't announce
but
itself,
still visible,
it simply
had
exists.
the same placement.
And that's
No
why
one
this
could
interview
confirm
matters
it,
in the series.
but thousands agreed. It
because
looked
it
too similar
reframed
to deny.
everything. And when
Not as
fans
coincidence,
zoomed into the pictures of the box
not
Hye
as
Kyo
speculation,
held, they noticed something
but
subtle,
as a chapter
but
where the
undeniable.
focus shifts
The ribbon
inward.
tied differently.
Where actions
Maison
become
Levant
quieter,
uses standard knots
where
for store
words
purchases.
become measured,
But
where
personalized
meaning becomes
items,
personal,
especially pair items,
and whatever comes
are wrapped
next,
with a side
whether
knot,
it's another subtle
slightly
moment,
bent,
never
another
centered,
quiet appearance,
a detail
or simply
almost
silence,
impossible to
this
notice
interview
unless
will remain
you've
a
purchased
reference
from them
point.
before.
Because
The box
sometimes
had the side
most
knot.
revealing moments are the
So now
ones
the
where
theory
nothing is
wasn't,
revealed
did she
at
buy
all.
something special?
It became, who owns the other half? And naturally, all eyes turned to Lee-Minute Ho. But that wasn't even the biggest twist. The biggest twist arrived when a fan account posted something that made everyone freeze. A short video from inside the boutique, taken by someone who was there moments before Hye Kyo walked in. In the background, resting behind a glass case, were two twin leather boxes. Identical. Aligned. Waiting. But in the video taken hours later, after Hye Kyo left, the boxes were gone. You don't remove both unless they were purchased together. You don't wrap both unless someone requested a pair. And you don't request a pair unless the meaning is shared. It made everyone wonder, was she buying the set for both of them? Or was she only retrieving one part of a pair that had already existed? Was the other wallet already with someone who has been quietly holding onto his piece all along? Fans dove even deeper when someone resurfaced an older interview where Lee-Minute Ho talked about meaningful gifts. He said, "I don't like loud gifts. I like things that you carry with you, things that stay on you, even if people don't see them." That interview meant nothing at the time. But now, with the theory of matching leather items, matching stitching, a matching collection, everything felt newly relevant. And then something happened that only made the story more surreal. Maison Levant's PR manager deleted 2 posts on their official Instagram, posts that showcased the Nomad Arc collection during its pre-launch. Why delete them? Why now? Why erase the visuals at the exact moment fans were connecting the dots? People speculated that the brand was trying to reduce attention, to keep something private, to prevent the resemblance from being too obvious. But fans had already saved screenshots, and those screenshots made their way onto every platform, captioned with things like, "This is the pair. This is what she bought. This is the second piece he might already have. This explains the website removal." And amidst all this chaos, the theories, the screenshots, the speculations, something incredibly subtle, almost hidden, slipped into the conversation. A fan noticed that Song Hye Kyo followed one of Maison Levant's private leather artisans months ago. An artisan known for doing only custom orders, only pair-based designs. She didn't follow the main brand's account. She didn't follow the designers. She followed the one person you follow only when you're planning something personalized. And she followed him before the boutique visit. Meaning, the purchase wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. Prepared. Requested. Possibly months in advance. Everything suddenly felt intentional. So intentional, in fact, that fans stopped treating it as gossip and started viewing it as a quiet story unfolding in real time, something neither actor would ever speak about directly, but something that could be understood through actions. And the final push came unexpectedly, when fans found out that the Nomad Arc pair items come with mirrored serial numbers. The left piece ends in one number. The right piece ends in the next. 2 numbers that only make sense together. 2 numbers assigned to 2 different owners. Someone tweeted, "If she bought the matching one, the left piece is already with someone." The tweet went viral instantly. People started analyzing airport photos, fan meetings, award shows, looking for glimpses of leather items Lee Minute Ho carried over the past year. And the more they compared, the more similarities they found. Not the same product. Not the same model. The same pair line. It created a wave of emotional reactions, half excitement, half disbelief, half cautious hope. Because if both actors were quietly using the same pair item, it meant they didn't need to be seen together to be connected. They could be sending messages silently. They could be sharing something personal. They could be communicating through the smallest details, the kind that only the most loyal fans would ever recognize. And suddenly, the narrative changed. This wasn't about a designer purchase anymore. It wasn't about a viral photo. It wasn't even about two actors with global fame. It was about two people who might be sharing something behind the scenes, something subtle, intimate, meaningful, something that doesn't need public confirmation to exist. Something expressed through matching items, mirrored purchases, and mirrored timing. And that's why the world can't stop talking about this. Because at the heart of this story isn't a rumor. It's a pattern. A pattern made of small details, details that line up too neatly to be coincidence. A box with a side knot. A pair collection removed from a website. A stylist's accidental like. A leather artisan followed months ago. A matching accessory spotted last year. Two twin boxes missing from a display case. Two serial numbers that only make sense together. No scandal. No drama. Just two separate lives linked by one quiet, beautiful symbol. A pair item meant for two people who share something the world hasn't fully seen yet. And if what she bought truly has a partner, the partner already has his piece.